What is the single most important question you need to ask and have answered before you start your own business?
Expert University presents Entrepreneurs Online, a podcast for real talk about running a real business online. Here are your hosts, Chris Keef and Todd Snively.
Hello again, everybody. Chris Keef here with another episode of Online Entrepreneurs. That's a big question and a pretty strong statement. Anytime you put the most important behind anything, it gets pretty big. So that's a strong statement, Chris, right? The most important question you need asked and answered. I'm not going to drag you along here. I want to share right away what that is. And I believe the most important question you need to ask yourself, we need to ask ourselves and then have answered or answer it ourselves, is why are we doing what we're doing? So I've seen in a lot of online programs, in a lot of businesses, I've seen that question asked. It's the right question, but I see it completely done inappropriately, wrongly, if you will. And I don't think people really have the understanding of why they're even asking that question. You need to find your why. It goes way beyond money, man. Okay, fair enough, and they're exactly right there. But what goes into that? Now, this is important for an online business, incredibly important for an online business. And I'll explain with telling a little bit about my story and share why. You'll probably experience the same thing in a few moments. But I also feel that this is a massive failure in management and leadership in most every business nowadays. Now, I've had a pretty long career in the corporate world, working for other people. How about that? Mostly small, medium-sized companies. And this is probably the most difficult and challenging thing for a manager to deal with, right? It's the why we do what we do. So let me roll this back a little bit. You may have heard of Maslow's hierarchy of need. Abraham Maslow was a psychologist, operated mostly during the 40s, 50s, kind of came to prominence in the 40s and 50s. And Maslow proposed there was a pyramid, if you will. This is kind of high school psychology, so you probably remember that term, Maslow's hierarchy of needs. I don't know if we remember really. You may not remember giving you panic attacks of your high school tests. But the premise of that hierarchy of needs was pretty straightforward in that there were 5 basic steps that someone needed, a human being needed, you and I need in our day-to-day activities. And if we start at the bottom, it's fairly primal, right? We need food, shelter, we need warmth, and we need to be able to sleep. Now that's almost animal in nature, right? We need to be able to not die. That's the bottom part, right? And so the not dying part is food to sustain us. We need a shelter over our head to keep warm, and we need to be able to keep the body temperature up. Okay, simple. The next is with that, we can't always be running around and worrying about being eaten by a bear. So we need, a team of people. We need safety. So we need a door on our home or our cave, if you will. So that's the next step. Again, pretty simple. But after that, after we check the box, and I think we forget this too often, we are animals at our very core. But once we check the box, okay, I've got a house, a roof over my head, I've got a home, I've got food, access to food, water, and I'm warm enough that I'm not going to freeze to death at night. After that, it gets pretty complex, right? And this is why we have to ask that question, why, when we look at a new venture and we talk about operating an online business. Let me explain. When we're working for our current job, and you may even be listening to this because you're thinking, oh, I want to find a way to do something else. I don't want to do this anymore. I'm tired. I'm frustrated. That leads me to the idea of why we may be feeling that way. Why you may be feeling that way. Why I have felt that way before I started an online business, before I started my own business, before I jumped into entrepreneurship. Again, I think this is the hardest thing for a manager or a management team to do. Because in Maslow's hierarchy of needs, the third step is belongingness and love. That's an interesting one, right? We need to feel like we are cared about. We need to care about other people. After that, esteem needs. It goes to prestige. It goes to feelings of accomplishment. We need to have worth. We need to have self-worth. And at the very top of that pyramid is self-actualization. That is, Maslow suggested that that's really truly the pinnacle, hence the triangle design, the pinnacle of human existence, of being safe and then creating the circle of friends and people around you and elevating yourself and your thought process and your belief system such that you have reached your absolute full potential. You are truly self-actualized. Now, the first two steps in that pyramid are simple. Hopefully, I'm going to make some assumptions here. That's not always good to do, right? But if you're able to hear this, you probably are in a position where you're doing fine as far as the first and second steps on the hierarchy of needs. So here we are. And here they are, the management team. And here you are looking at starting a new business. What happens is we have to know why we're doing what we're doing in any task as it relates to work, with air quotes. We have checked the box. We've got our food. Okay, if what we're doing on a day-to-day basis is simply there to fulfill those basic needs of I need to keep a roof over my head and I need to keep food coming in the door, that's pretty dang weak in the grand scheme of things. Now, I don't profess that Maslow's hierarchy is the end-all, be-all of human existence, and it's the only thing that exists. No, but to me, it's a wonderful example and one of the most simplest forms of really what human beings need. And I agree with it. I fully agree with the premise. And that's why, as a manager, it was always difficult in my role, and perhaps you as a manager or your manager did things wrong most of the time or really had a hard time getting their arms around this. Let's explore that a little bit. You're in your job. Like I said, you're in a probably pretty good space. You have your food. You have your shelter. You perhaps hopefully have some friends around you. That's the esteem part, the intimate relationships. But beyond that, every single day for 40, 50 years of work, we need to know why we're grinding that out. What do we do that for? Is it just to exist? Are we doing this purely? Are you doing what you're doing now? Are we doing our job purely for the purpose of staying alive? Simple, right? And you may have that aha moment to go, oh, yeah, I don't really know. So where this comes off the rails in current corporate structure is when I see it so often. I hear it so often. You're at a company meeting, and we need the rah-rah speech. We need to talk about what we're doing and where we're going and how Q1 or quarter 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 is going. We want a big push to get more units out the door. Okay, that's great. Why? Well, because I told you to. Okay, that's step 1 of really crappy management, right? That is what I call the teeth to the back of the head style of management. Do it or I'll fire you. Terrific. How long do you think that's going to last? And if you're in that kind of job, please, for the love of all things holy, leave it. But so many people do that. Now, there are companies and management structures and teams and managers that do that even inadvertently. I think that they're saying that without exploring the real reason why and helping you figure that out. That's all they're going to come up with because I said so. Now, the good managers go, oh, I know. I've got it. Step out of the way, Jill. I'm going to tell these folks what we're doing. Not because you have to, because you're going to get fired. You know, we have to move up the ladder more towards self-actualization. So here's what we're going to do. Let me tell you what are the number of units out the door. It represents profitability for the company. And the company's profitability increased the stock value for our shareholders, and then our shareholders are happy. Oh, that's terrific, right? That's awesome. Because I'm sitting here on the line grinding things out, or I'm a purchaser in a company, or I'm a salesperson, or I'm doing whatever it is I'm doing in my job, and I now am supposed to translate working hard, staying late, doing extra for some random shareholder that owns stock in the company I work for. Yeah, that's not going to work. Ever. That is akin to do it or you're fired. How do I create any sort of urgency or importance there when I hear a story like that? That flies a flag in the face of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. It flies a flag, it's hard to say, in the face of most management structures, because that's not a good reason why. It answers the question, sure, but in a really terrible way, because we are externalizing all of the reasons. We're externalizing everything I'm doing and the pain I'm going through and getting up early. Work a little extra. We're going to push a little hard. Think of that on a Friday afternoon at the end of the month or right before a holiday season. We need to get these units out the door. Can you stay? Why? That's important. So I translate that to why, and answering that question when you're looking at starting a new venture, an online business, entrepreneurship. Because most people, not everybody, but most people are doing this nowadays on the side or trying to do something prior to leaving the comfort of their regular job. So the why question matters a lot because it gets hard. Why in heck do I come home from a long day of work and spend my hours building something that's really hard and new and I'm bad at and I suck at? Why would I do that? This is why it's imperative that you have to find out and understand and ask the question and answer why you're doing what you're doing. If you're the entrepreneur that says, I'm going to burn all the ships and I don't care. I'm sailing to the new land. I'm going to hop off the ships and I'm going to burn them so I have no options. I got to figure this out. Well, that creates a pretty important why, right? That actually ratchets back. And some people do it that way, and that's fair. I was not that person, and I'll explain that in a second. I was not that person. I did not want to, for reasons I'll go into later. The 2007, 2008 financial crash really left some battle scars. Some of you probably remember that well. I was not willing to shut it all down and risk everything. So some people operate that way, though. Todd will come up with some amazing stories. He had to, just circumstances in his life. He literally had to make something work because he needed food and shelter. Damn, that gets pretty animal instinct pretty quick. Okay, so that's one set of circumstances that burn the ship. I was not that way, and I think, in fairness, most people don't go that way. The direction we go is I'm working my job. I may have a good or bad manager. Either way, I need to be my own manager now. I need to ask the single most important question. Why am I doing this? So the why question, again, I hear no offense, but I hear some young 22, 23, 25-year-old person with an online course saying, oh man, make millions, man. And what's the marketing? What does it look like? It's Internet Marketing 101. It's gross. And that's why you'll never see Todd or myself doing that. It is fast cars, it's Lamborghinis, it's Ferraris, it's Audi R8s, it's Airbnbs on the beach, it's parties, it's pools. It's a very, and that's attractive and it can be sexy. And I understand that at the very core. Oh, that'd be awesome. Or this nebulous sort of laptop lifestyle. Okay. I get that actually. Sort of. But what does even that mean? I mean, I understand it in a theoretical sense that I can work anywhere. That to me means geographic independence. So in our podcast, I talk to folks like that. That's what this podcast is for. Go back and listen to the podcast with Tom Myers. Tom is a partner of ours in one of our businesses, our SaaS, software as a service business. And he is truly a digital nomad. His why is, I want to see the world. I want to make enough money so I can see the world. A very tangible thing that he has delivered on. He's been to London and Bali and South Africa and New Zealand, and the list goes on and on and on. And he's done so building a business. That's a very specific why. My why was specific as well. I realized the same thing. I had tried many internet marketing courses. I tried AdWords. I tried small e-commerce businesses. I tried niche websites. I tried all of these different things, right? Like many of you probably have. But I too realized I didn't have a compelling reason to keep going. When things got difficult, it was easier for me just to say, I couldn't relate why I was doing the task to why it mattered. Back to the corporate gig, the really good corporate person, the really good corporate leader, the really good manager is going to be able to take the task and tasks that you are doing and need to do and the company needs to do, individualize them, and package them in a way to say, this is why it's important. Staying a little extra time helps because we do get more units out the door. But more units out the door increases the overall revenue and profitability of the company. That profitability means good things for us. It means more profit sharing, more bonus potential. It means more opportunity for advancement in the company. That advancement in the company means more compensation and salary and bonuses for later on. What typically are the questions that people should be asking that I never hear asking in the corporate world? What do you do with that bonus? Where do you want to go? Where do you want to be? Do you want to advance in the company? Do you want more time? You want more free time? Are you looking for a place in the lake? You're looking for a place in the Caribbean? Do you want to retire early? All those things are questions, the whys, directed specifically to the person, not a shareholder, not because I told you to, not because the boss said so. This is the question you have to ask yourself. So when I was working in my job, I knew I had to find out a why, because every time things got difficult or things were challenging or I needed to get over a hump, I didn't have a compelling reason. So as I was getting a little bit older, I had a son at the time. I have a son now, but at the time a young son. And my thinking at the time was, I have to find the why, but I have to look at finances and what I'm doing in the future. And I had to unpack my life and what I did. And I saw the current environment. And I'll get a little personal here with you, but I realized that there were a lot of people out there, young people going out to college, and they were strapping themselves with a staggering amount of debt. And I see that as an unconscionable step in our economy, our country. I love the USA, but that is allowed to happen, that we have this mode of education that kids go out there, take on $150,000 at fairly high interest debt that is not dischargeable in a bankruptcy. I think one of the only, if not the only, risk that someone takes. Everything else, home to businesses, otherwise can be discharged in a bankruptcy. Not student loans. That is horrible. I think that sets somebody up for massive failure. And that really ticked me off, learning about that, seeing that. And also going through 07, 08 and seeing those people, and I'm not going to go into that, but the big banks and corporations and that kind of stuff, really not giving a rip about the little person. I said, well, there's my why. I need cash in the bank, unencumbered, tax-free dollars to pay for his entire education. And once I realized that why, and I'm like, okay, well, that's something to work towards, and how that made me feel, I started to explore, okay, let's look at some more whys. Let's unpack this a little bit more, how that made me feel and motivated me, gave me a tangible purpose, gave me something to work for. Every dollar that I earned that didn't go towards food and shelter and heat, the extra dollar I could put in the bank and see that slowly grow was a dollar he wasn't going to have to be encumbered with on his first job making $35,000, $40,000 just out of college. I could feel him graduating, throwing his cap in the air, so going great, putting his resumes out, getting a job, and then getting a bill going. Great job. Here's 30 years of debt. I couldn't handle that. That dollar was a dollar off that list every single time. And then I thought, okay, well, how do I translate this to where do I want to go with my wife in the future? I started to visualize that stuff and say, well, I adore the Caribbean. I live in the Northeast in New England, in the United States. And I love spring, summer, fall here. The winters are quite rough. They're not good. I'm definitely, as a career New Englander, I am not meant to stay here in the winters. It's too much. I love the Caribbean, love the water, love the lifestyle, love the mentality, love everything about it. I want a home, a place that I can stay. Even if it's not a home that I own, I want the job or business built such that I can leave geographic independence. I can pick up my laptop and my business goes with me and I fly down and I spend 3 or 4 months in the Caribbean in the winter months after my son goes off to college. That became my why. Now, I've since grown. In Maslow's hierarchy of needs, at the very top, the self-actualization, full potential, creative activities. Part of my situation now is I find latch on to more whys. I donate every single month to causes that I believe in. And I know I can send a pretty large sum of dollars to these folks and feel quite happy about it. It changes their world, the people that they're impacting. I know that changes the world for them. That is a huge why for me. So I'm always now looking for new whys, because if it's just because, you're not going to do it. When it gets hard, it's too easy to say, bah. Why? Because we've got the boxes checked. We're happy, we're healthy, we're safe. It's good enough. I got a job. It's not the end of the world. I just put up with it. And that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. But before you jump into the arena, before you get dirty and sweaty, when it gets hard, I see so many people stand up and go, bah, I'm just going to walk away. And that's a conversation for another day. But the complaints and this doesn't work and those people suck and this is a scam and that's a scam. Okay, fair enough. But I have to ask the question most often when I see those things, what were you doing to take an active role in making that work? Big question. But I think that gets answered by the question, why? Why are you doing what you're doing? So I implore you to do that. Find out your why. Ask, what is motivating me, or what would motivate me to keep doing what I'm doing? Where do I want to go? Who do I want to be? Who do I want to help? That question is going to be incredibly important, imperative when things get difficult. Ask the question, write it down, formulate a plan, and figure out your why. Thank you, everybody. I look forward to catching you in the next episode.
Thanks for watching, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell if you enjoyed this content so you'll never miss out. So easy. Thanks for watching.